On today's show, grading the Houston Rockets free agency moves so far to this point, how they have creatively structured some of their free agency moves to be major players next offseason, and just trading KJ Martin and Josh Christopher help Jalen Green. We're going to break it all down for you coming right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
The Houston Rockets select Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, and Jabari Smith Jr.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
Every time I step on that floor, I'm coming.
Hey, Houston fans, I am so happy.
You're getting somebody who's going to come in with a chip on their shoulder, somebody who's going to come in and compete from day one.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, a native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop your grades for the Rockets free agency moves so far in the comment section. Now, as always, appreciate you making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on the way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making LOR part of your day every single day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. Joining us now in the aftermath of Rockets free agency, or Rockets free agency so far, is your weekly co-host, Frank, from the Rockets Chop Shop. You can track down on Twitter at FTank58, as well as at HTX Chop Shop, and be sure to follow along at their YouTube channel for all of the Rockets content that they put out. Frank, it's been a whirlwind of a couple days for the Houston Rockets. This team already looks drastically different than it did just 2-3 days ago with all the additions that they've made via free agency and the trades that they consummated.
Yeah, it's been an emotional roller coaster. I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like, I've been the first night
emotional.
I was really yeah, man. We've been waiting for this for so long to get to this point. I've been all over the place. I think I'm at a good spot now where I'm taking everything in and kind of seeing how everything laid out with the different moves that they made. So my biggest phrase, it's a mixed bag. It truly is a mixed bag. But at the end of the day, the Rockets got better. But there's some, things in there that I wished could have gone differently. But overall, they got better.
We're going to kind of navigate the moves that they've made. We'll throw out some grades for what we think the Rockets did ultimately. We want your commentary as well in the YouTube comments. Share your grades for how you would assess Rockets free agency, at least so far, because there may be some smaller moves on the margins made still here. The Rockets do still have their room MLE left to be able to utilize. They've got about $4.5 million of cap space left after all the other moves that they've made. So there might be one or two more names coming down the pipeline. But Frank, let's start with the biggest name on the market that the Rockets got, and that's Fred VanVleet. I've said it now in not one, but two podcasts. I've already said that to me was an A++ signing by the Rockets, so my grade has been out there for a minute about Steady Freddie. How do you feel about that signing? How do you feel about him?
Well, at first, the part of the roller coaster was that 3-year part, right? Before we knew that the third year was the team option, I was really like, man, that really isn't what the type of contract you want to give to a Fred VanVleet. I love Fred VanVleet. I've been telling people on my channel that a 2-year, $80, $83, $84 million contract for a guard of his caliber, it's worth it, especially when you have the money to spend, the cap space to use. That third year really, I got a little nervous there, but then when I saw that it was a team option, it really changed. It's basically a 2-year salary. So if it gives you, and there's some incentives for actually having that third year available, because it allows you to be a little more creative with how you use your cap space in the event that there's not a great person out there you want to go grab. So for that specific, this Fred VanVleet, what he's bringing as a leader, what he brings as the on-court product, he threads the needle of both being somebody that can help you win right now, but he's not such an overbearing presence on the court and in the locker room like a star or a big player that you still can help develop. some of the other talent that you have on the roster, yeah, that is a for me. And I'm not going to say plus. I'll give it an A. I'll give it an A just because that even though the team option is there and everything like that. The 40-something million is a, like you see it and you're like, damn, 43 million, 45 million. So, but A for that grade. I think that's one of the better signings. And a lot of people, on both of our channels, bro, there's a lot of Toronto Raptors fans that keep saying, you want him, you got him. Well, we got him, okay? So y'all don't worry about us. We're going to do what we do. We're coming from hell. So we're happy with Fred VanVleet, okay? So yeah, I'm going to give it an A.
Yeah, man. Look, first off, the Raptors fans commenting on both our channels saying stuff like Fred VanVleet and all that stuff. I'm like, God, y'all are just y'all are just big salty about the fact that you missed out on this guy. Just y'all can have fun with Dennis Schroeder as your point guard. Okay,
oh yeah, I forgot they got him.
All good on all that. Look, we got Fred VanVleet. I loved the pickup. Right, I've been saying A++ because I feel like it was the biggest positional need for the Houston Rockets, and it's kind of funny. You see maybe some of the messaging kind of changing now, right? For the past 2 years, we've seen all the messaging about Kevin Porter Jr. being the leader of this team, the point guard of this team, the emotional fulcrum of this team, those articles out there. And our guy Kelly Eco actually just dropped a new one Monday morning. Yeah. And one of the quotes in the article, it says, the days of deploying Porter as a makeshift point guard are over now with a legitimate lead ball handler and NBA champion under center. And man, did that quote hit, Frank.
That hit, and it really started, bro. If you think about it, it started like in March when they started talking about who their core was. There were a lot of articles. I don't know if it was intentional or coincidental, or it never mentioned him. So this pivot away from KPJ, I think, is an underlying storyline that a lot, I know, like we're gonna get into as the weeks come along, but we've been saying this for a while. Like, he's a great player, a talented player, but he was never a point guard. And the Rockets, I guess, I don't know what their true intentions were for this. I think one thing the article did say was that at least in this experiment that he's gone through, he's able to be a creator in his role, which Kelly put him as a shooting guard behind Jalen Green, which is very interesting. But he has the ability to create for his teammates. So at worst, you got a player that still has the skills to be a secondary playmaker on a team that's going to require those skills, because we still have a need as a pure backup guard if a man isn't ready. So, yeah, man, no more KPJ arguments, hopefully, going forward for the Rockets fan base.
No more.
I'm the head honcho.
The head honcho has been replaced by Fred Honcho, man. Fred Honcho is here to
I like
stay.
That, Fred Honcho.
We're going to have to rock with the Fred Honcho nickname for a minute. Coming up, we've got the other signings, other moves that the Rockets have made, and stuff that might be on the horizon for this Rockets team. Maybe they were a bit intentional about trying to roll some of their cap space over to next offseason. We're going to break down more of this coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projections, you can up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available, and Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for all the action. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That means if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Let's go next on our list here, Frank, of the acquisitions made by the Rockets. And this is going to be the one where the grades, the reception is going to be pretty polarizing amongst the fan base. Dillon Brooks. Yeah. He's a guy that we've talked about before. He's a guy that, certainly brings some much needed defense intensity. He brings some positives, but he also brings some negatives, some question marks, and the contract. However, I guess we keep finding out little tidbits. It's like they're just like letting him out just piece by piece about his contract structure. First, we found out it was 4 years, $80 million. Then we found out it's front loaded, so it's in descending value. And now we've most recently found out via Kelly Eco that it actually has incentives and whatnot baked into it. So the contract might even be more favorable than it looks like on the surface as the 4 years, $80 million.
Yeah, the Dillon Brooks contract is probably my lowest grade for the Rockets in the free agency, and not because necessarily the money involved, but the length of the contract. Well, the money is because the $20 million was not what most of us were discussing prior to the actual the numbers came out. But that 4 years, the fact that it touches Jalen's class of extensions and Jabari's class of extensions, plus the type of player that he is a polarizing player. Even in Memphis, I listened to I forgot the guy's name on the Ringer that does a podcast with whatever.
Vernon something.
Verno. Yeah, Verno. I listen to Verno.
Yeah.
Verno's a diehard Memphis fan, and I think he probably hates Dillon Brooks more than anybody. So to me, yes, he's one of those guys that he's going to be polarizing within the fan base. Think Christian Wood type, but the difference is he's the anti-Christian Wood on the court because he actually plays like he's one of the best defenders, wing defenders in the NBA. So depending on what the incentives are and, how the descending contract is going to work out over the next few, when the information comes out. I think actually it's not a bad contract, especially for a team that is lacking defense and has lacked defense over the past 3 years. Overcompensating for that by bringing him in. I think the value that Brooks has to the Houston Rockets, to our team and our context of our situation is more than he probably has to the rest of the NBA. So looking at it from that angle, it could be. I had it as a C minus. I could bump that up to a B plus because, like I said, we were one of the worst defenses all over, half court, transition. He's going to be a guy that he picks up full court. He's a guy that he's going to try to take on the other team's best player. There's videos of them. You can watch him in practice and things like that. He talks, he over talks. If y'all remember when PJ Tucker was here, that was his thing. Over talk.
Always talking, always communicating.
Yeah, always talking. Yep. And that's Dillon Brooks. He's a communicator. He's telling guys where to be. Honestly, I think the fan base is going to end up liking him a lot because just like with Chris Paul, most of us hated Chris Paul before he became a Rocket. When he was here, we excused all the weird stuff he was doing. Then when he went out, then you start like, well, yeah, he's kind of a dirty player. So Dillon is in that lane. So I'm going to give them a B plus for that. And it may actually grow on the fan base. So I would say we should all just kind of cool off on him a bit.
I'll go B minus for now until we know what the incentives look like. Again, I was warming up to the idea of the addition of Dillon Brooks for a while in the lead up to it happening because it felt like a foregone conclusion, almost like even as we were waiting for the Brook Lopez domino to fall, I was like, okay, we just need this one to happen so that we can see what happens with Dillon Brooks. It kind of felt like the organization was being really transparent about their targets. And again, Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks were two of their big three up on the board, and they snagged Dillon Brooks. And like you said, I think that I'm kind of right there with you. I think that by November, December or so, like a month or two into the season, Rockets fans are going to have a new fan favorite. He's going to grow on the fan base. I think Red94 was joking on Twitter saying we're all going to be wearing jorts to Toyota Center, copying the Dillon Brooks look at some point. I mean, I don't hate it. I think that he fills a position of need, and just him and Fred VanVleet alone are going to elevate this defense so much, right? The Rockets went from being arguably the worst defense in the NBA to at least 5 to 10 spots better just with those two guys added by themselves, and also kind of having them show the other guys how to be better players, where to be defensively, the communication element that you brought up with Dillon Brooks. All of that matters a lot in the scheme of how this Rockets team is ultimately going to look next season. Next guy that the Rockets brought in, bit of a surprise, although I kind of like it, and it was definitely a pivot move once the Brook Lopez thing didn't happen. Jock Landale.
Yeah. What a pivot, though. Hey, Brook Lopez, that's our first guy. We didn't get Brook. I called Jock right now. I don't understand how that trajectory happened. So I'm sure there's 5 guys in between before we got to Landale. But I like the guy. He's a pretty good backup guy.
He had the strong postseason with Phoenix, and I think that he gives them, like, this was kind of one of the bigger, similar to the Fred VanVleet taking over the starting role, and kind of now the Kevin Porter Jr. storyline that we're going to be following, and how he adapts to whatever his new role looks like on this Rockets team, which it kind of looks like, backup 2-guard, dynamic creator off the bench, that kind of thing. If they had brought in Brook Lopez, then there would have been a lot of question marks about what happens with Alperen Sengun moving forward. Right now, unless we walk into another Bruno Fernando situation where Jock Landale's the starting center next year, could you even imagine what the fan base would do if that happened, man?
We would have to storm Toyota, January 6th style. We're not going through this again. Not for Jock Landale. No, definitely not.
Good value on the contract, though. First year guaranteed. Nothing else past that guaranteed. 4 years, $32 million. I'll give that one a B+, actually, just because I think it was just kind of like an innovative, creative signing, really good, friendly contract structure, and a really high-quality backup for Alperen Sengun, a guy that can give you 15, 20 solid minutes a night and can, in a pinch, be a starter if Sengun misses a game or two or something like that, and be at least serviceable at the 5 spot. And I'm also just going to give some points because it's not Dwight Powell.
Oh, yeah. I know a lot of people that hate Dwight Powell. I don't dislike him. I just don't think he has any impact at all on anything. Jock Landale, he's like a Mason Plumlee type of player, if you guys want to comp for him. He's a smart player, Australian guy. He played, for the Suns. He played for the Spurs. He's always one of those guys that whenever he gets on the court, he's going to be a positive. Like, he's not going to do anything to hurt the team. Pretty good, kind of rim deterrent. He's a better athlete than he looks. And I think it's actually a great thing for Alperen Sengun and the Rockets, because one of the things that we've talked about over the past years is how Alp's talents have been kind of pushed to the side, because of Christian Wood, because of, sadly, Bruno Fernando. Just random things. Coach Silas never really bought into that. And I think that Coach Udoka is a little bit more creative in how he approaches the game. So Alp, we're hearing that he's growing and getting bigger. So this is going to be a chance for him to really take control of this center position. It's a big year for Alperen, because I don't see a world where Jock Landale, as good as he is and what he does, there's no way he should beat out Alperen Sengun for a spot. If he does beat out Alperen Sengun for a spot, then we're all in trouble. But so I think that this is going to be a great time for him to really show that he belongs as not just, we know he can score, we know he's offensively dynamic. Can you anchor a team? Can you be that anchor on the defensive end for a team? With Udoka, he's going to be playing a lot of drop coverage still. But one thing that Coach Udoka does is that he likes to mix up his drops, where they do show a lot of, traps and different hard hedges, where he tries to get the players that are being attacked. He tries to use alignment to get them off the attack and make the other team have to force the issue. So he's not just going to, for example, let Alp play the drop against Dame Lillard dropping 70. So hopefully we're never going to see something like that. So I'm really excited. I think.
Well, maybe we're never going to see something like that again, because we were already forced to live through that.
Yes, we were seeing that, right? I think that this year, if out of all our young guys, I'm going to bet that Alperen has the biggest jump. As great as he was already, because of this situation, no Brook Lopez. The Jock Landale, it's a good move. The contract looks great. It's basically a bunch of team options into infinity. So if he is a good guy that fits in the locker room, you can keep him around. It's a team friendly deal. Great locker room guy. I've watched some interviews. Great character guy. He's funny. I'm going to give that one an A. It's just a guy there. Now, if I look at it in context of Brook Lopez, I may want to be tempted to take away some points for it. But they did what they had to do, which for me, the Lopez thing fell through. You pivot to a point where you don't have to tie up yourself in the future. It's a short-term deal. You're kicking the can down the road on that position. And I'm perfectly fine with that, with them doing that.
The last guy that the Rockets managed to bring in, an old fan favorite from the Rockets bubble days, Uncle Jeff Green is back in Rockets red, fresh off his title run with the Denver Nuggets. I love this pickup, Frank. This is exactly the type of locker room guy that you want to help, Ime Udoka establish his culture and vision for the Rockets. You see the way that he not only provided an on-court impact for the Nuggets, but the way that he also mentored and taught the young guys over there, really helping, impart his knowledge, his wisdom to these guys. He's a great locker room presence, a great leader. I think that was, I'm going to give that one just a flat A for being able to go out and grab him. Again, another kind of pivot type move where, you're giving Jeff Green a bag, you're giving him $6 million to come to the Rockets and basically just be that third string center, that, locker room guy. It's not like he's going to get, consistent rotation minutes on any given night, but I love what he's going to be able to bring to this team just from, an off the court perspective for sure.
Yeah, I definitely, that's an A+ for me. Jeff Green is a great vet, and him getting $6 million for 1 year to come and help us transfer into this new era of Rockets basketball, I think it's a great fit. He fits checks all the boxes that Coach Udoka speaks of. Great character guy, great locker room guy, a leader, defensive minded. He can still get up. Uncle Jeff is still an athlete at his age. He can help on the court. And you think about some of the second units that we have that may feature Amen Thompson and Jae'Sean Tate. Having a Uncle Jeff to be maybe interchangeable with Jock Landale to be that small ball 5, where you have a couple of non-shooters on there, really makes a big difference in a team that's trying to win. So yeah, I think that's a great great signing. You couldn't go wrong there. Overall, I don't know if we were going to touch on this, but overall, you see all the free agency signings. They start off pretty negative, and they've transferred over to, especially with the Dillon Brooks thing, if we can figure out what exactly the full contract is, they might have done what I was saying they should do. If you miss out on guys, just kick the can. You could tie up your cap space with shorter, pivotable contracts and do that. So overall, I think they've done that. My biggest quibble with the Rockets is the asset management of how we kind of try to expand our cap space to get Brook Lopez and failed in doing so. And I think it showed showed lack of foresight in them and not preparing for the world where Brook actually just says no. And that is concerning to me going forward as looking at our front office trying to build a contender. But other than that, I think, as far as just the free agent signings, they did pretty good.
You read my mind, man. That's exactly where we're going next. We're going into the contract structures and what it means for next offseason and how they maybe did have a little bit of foresight in some of the decisions they made just now this offseason with some of the moves that they made, as well as the asset management portion, because I do think it warrants discussion. So we're going to get there in just one moment. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Final segment where Frank and I are going to vent some of our frustrations here about the Rockets and asset management, or lack thereof asset management. In the break in between segments, we actually both started laughing because Frank's like, I've been building up to this for 3 years. I want to talk about it. So
oh my God,
I'm gonna let you get your bars off, Frank. Let's riff on this because it is a conversation that warrants discussing because it is important, and hopefully we can help Rockets fans better understand that the frustration isn't necessarily painted about the players that the Rockets moved on from, but why they moved on from them and how they moved on from them.
Yeah, so obviously, kind of what I alluded to in the previous segment was that we basically gave away players in the form of TyTy Washington, Usman Garuba to the Hawks, and Jacob to the Grizzlies. And then, the Kenyon Martin part, only getting 2 second-round picks for a guy that could be a role player on pretty much any team in the NBA. And in an effort to expand, to get more cap space, to be able to offer more money to Brook Lopez. Now, to me, we've known for damn near the whole year that this, who the players are going to be in free agency and, what possibly, the contracts are going to be, when the time comes. So I am shocked that the Houston Rockets didn't have a world where Brook Lopez may not just jump on the number that they gave them initially and had to go into scramble mode to the point where you're giving away guys that you just drafted literally like yesterday, which is really just terrible asset management in the NBA. And it's not even about Usman Garuba because Usman Garuba barely played. It's not about TyTy. It's not about, KJ in a vacuum. It's not about Jacob in a vacuum. What it's about is that then you look back when you did draft these guys, a lot of people were saying, hey, maybe try to move those picks. But no, we're going to draft all these players. To add insult to injury, not only do you draft 7 first-round picks, you don't play them. And not only you don't play them, the players in front of them sometimes were worse than them. And the ones that you played in front of them, most of them are gone. Just some of them got waived, got walked out. So we wasted all of these players and trying to either build up their stock to show the NBA that, hey, maybe TyTy is a viable option, not now, but 3 years from now. Look what he did against these 5 teams that he got a chance to play against, instead of Daishen Nix playing 30 minutes and just waiving Daishen Nix. It's terrible. It's just terrible asset management. To me, it reeks of bad foresight and trying to anticipate what the market is. And it is a pattern that I'm seeing, Jackson, with the Rockets, that they are always in reactive mode rather than being proactive, which is so opposite of what we saw from Daryl Morey when he was the general manager here. Despite the Russ move, which, most people would say was a Tillman thing, Morey was always on the cutting edge, and that's what I'm used to for my front office. And it does make me, beg the question. Yeah, we had a decent free agency, got some guys we want. Can Stone and this front office build an actual contender? Because you're not just competing with Houston, you're competing with Golden State, you're competing with Phoenix, you're competing with the Clippers, with the Lakers, with Miami, with the Bucks. Like, it's a competitive world, not just on the court, but in the executive suite. So, we keep getting beat up a little bit in some of these trades and moves. So I don't know if for the future for the Rockets, if I'm really assured that this is the front office is going to get us to the promised land that we're dreaming of.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And to add, some context here, right? The Rockets had this deal lined up with Brook Lopez, and that's why they made all these other subsequent deals. And, my understanding, at least at this point, is that they didn't feel right, I guess, about backing out of these other deals with the other teams that they had kind of orchestrated behind the scenes in order to clear the cap space to sign Brook Lopez. And so when Brook Lopez essentially decided to renege on his deal and kind of back out of the offer that the Rockets had on the table for him, going back to Milwaukee, leveraging that offer into a bigger contract with Milwaukee, which, shout out to the Bucks for their pain tolerance of matching it and going 2 years, $48 million. I don't think I wasn't expecting them to go that high, honestly, for Brook Lopez. I think it looks like the Rockets wanted to prioritize maintaining the good faith, the relationships with the teams that they had, orchestrated these deals with, and didn't want to then subsequently back out of these deals. But, and this is my big frustrating point, and it's back to asset management and foresight. If you had just let Kevin Porter Jr. go to restricted free agency instead of giving him the contract that you did at the beginning of this past season, a contract that I think we can all very safely say that nobody would have offered him anywhere near that amount of money this offseason, the cap hold on KPJ's deal would have been roughly $6 million less than it currently is. Therefore, ipso facto, you wouldn't have even had to make any of these deals to have the cap space to pursue Fred VanVleet, Dillon Brooks, and Brook Lopez all at the same time. You could have kept all the young guys. You would not have. Now, you may have still experienced some roster churn. Obviously, you can only go into the season with 15 names on the roster, all of that. I get that. But you wouldn't have been backed into a corner or painted yourself into a corner where you were forced to unload these guys for little to no value, or in certain cases, offloading future assets to get rid of some of these guys in order to facilitate, signing a guy that didn't even wind up signing with you in the first place. So that is another element of just screaming lack of foresight, lack of planning, and just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, like you said, right? Being reactive instead of proactive in how you're approaching these things. Again, I don't think anybody realizes that, or I don't think anybody was going to offer Kevin Porter Jr. the contract that the Rockets ultimately did. And you can argue that it's a good contract, creative with all the incentives and all the outs and this, that, and the other thing. You could have still negotiated that exact same contract this summer.
Look at what Austin Reeves got.
Amazing.
This is a guy that is literally closing out the Golden State Warriors in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Look what the contract he got from the Lakers and when they let him go to restricted free agency. So to me, is Kevin Porter Jr., is he worth more in the open market than Austin Reeves? Austin Reeves, who's closing out Steph Curry, versus KPJ, who's on a 22-win Rockets. So, yeah, I mean, that's a point. Great point bringing that up. I'm going to give you a quote, Jackson. This is going to be a locked on first. I don't think anybody's ever quoted this guy on your show. It says, know when to walk away from the table. This is from Donald Trump. Art of the deal.
Oh, man. Not
the art of the deal.
Oh, my.
The art of the deal. And Tillman, I know, has his book on his shelf for a fact.
Sometimes you gotta shut up and listen, right?
Shut up and listen. Know when to walk away. The fact that they were trying to even do this expansion of all these players, it's just like, come on, bro. Like, we should know what's our price point. What are we willing to do? I don't want to hear the good faith stuff. Like, come on, it's a business. No, that good faith stuff is going to get people fired. You know what I mean? That those are fireable offenses in some cases. But, I think all jokes aside, I still like the moves that they made. It just screams of bad mistakes from the past that we had to make up for. And they came back and bit us right now in the future. The KPJ thing, the not playing our guys thing, all of that stuff really came full circle.
Now, look, we both got a chance to kind of vent our frustrations here. Let's end on a couple slightly more positive notes here. First of which, we've hinted at it a couple times. The way the Rockets have constructed this roster now, though, with the way some of the contracts are set up, they are poised to have about somewhere north of $30 million next free agency. And that, I think, was very intentional in the way that they were able to pivot some of these contracts. So essentially, you can... If you want to, KPJ this year is effectively an expiring contract, so that's one. Jae'Sean Tate, another one. Jeff Green expiring because 1 year, and then Jock Landale only guaranteed 1 year. So
team option, yeah.
all four of those guys coming off the books next season would give you approximately a little north of $30 million to play with in free agency. And obviously, if you really wanted, if there was a guy that you felt really strongly about trying to pursue in free agency, you can almost always create more room if you needed to offload another slightly bigger salary somewhere else to make something happen. So that is one positive, at least, that the Rockets could be significant players next free agency after what we hope is a step in the right direction. I kind of predicted like 35-ish wins this next season, at least as presently constructed. That's a pretty monumental jump from being 22 wins. Yeah. But if they do that, if they maybe flirt with the play-in territory and they've got this young, exciting core and they've got Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks as guys to say, hey, like, come play with us. Like, we got something brewing here in Houston. The young guys know what's up. Then maybe they could be players for a marquee free agent. And there's one other point here, Frank, I hate that I'm going to have to address this on the show. There have been a couple videos circulating of Jalen Green on social media, and we're not going to get into the specifics. If you've seen the videos, you know what I'm talking about. But I do think that the Rockets trading KJ Martin and Josh Christopher, who were easily Jalen's two closest friends, right? Long-term friends, AAU teammates, all that. All those guys go way back, right? I do think that trading those guys is going to be kind of a wake-up call for Jalen Green, right? This Rockets team, we've joked in the past, right? Other talking heads, pundits have joked, it's all AAU vibes in Houston. There's no, they're an unserious organization. I think this is kind of that wake-up call for Jalen where he doesn't have his buddies anymore, right? It's going to be time for him to wake up and really face facts. This is the NBA, it's a business, and he needs to really focus up. Not to say that Jalen hasn't been focused and working and trying hard, all that, but I do think it's about to become less buddy-buddy in that locker room and more, hey, head down, let's get to work under Ime.
Great point. And, whether intentional or unintentional, I definitely do see that as like, hey, bro, welcome to the NBA. Right. I think this is the first time our guys, the ones that are still here, are going to see that what John Wall was angrily venting on that podcast that he was on, that they think stuff is sweet out here and it's not. And this is an example of stuff not being sweet. When it's time to win and people's jobs are on the line, we love you, Jalen, but at the end of the day, if you're the reason that the Rockets are losing or they see an opportunity to become a much better team by moving on, they would move on from it. I don't think anybody is untouchable on this roster because we haven't done anything yet. And I think that this season, he has to, not only for that, he's also due for his extension talks starting next year. He has to really lock in on both ends of the court. Given the type of coach that we brought in, Ime being a guy that's really heavy on defense, and now his twin is going to be his competition. Him and KPJ are essentially going to be overlapping in some of the roles that they play. And there are some that argue that Kevin Porter, maybe right now, is a better player than Jalen Green is, just given his all-around skill set. So Jalen really needs to, like, this is not his team. If it was, it's not anymore. We have some adults in the room. He's going to go back to a slot where, even though he's probably our highest star, like, potential player, he's going to have to show it on the court because Fred VanVleet doesn't care where you were drafted. Dillon Brooks damn sure doesn't care where you were drafted. So they're going at him every practice. He's just going to have to show like he's a dog and get it that way because there's no way you're going to be able to, oh, I was drafted second, so it's my team. That stuff is done. So I'm curious to see from all our young guys. I know Jabari is going to be okay because he has a certain type of mentality. Tari, he's okay. You know, he just wants to play. Can Jalen take the reins and really step up and step out to be the star that we need him to be? Because that's really what he's projected to be. Can he do that is yet to be seen, but I'm excited to see what even training camp looks like this year, bro.
Man, it's going to be an exciting offseason moving forward. We've got Summer League right around the corner. Of course, we'll have you covered for all of that right here at Locked On Rockets. Frank, do us a favor. Let everybody know where they can track you down at.
Track me down on Twitter, FTank58, and the Rockets Chop Shop on YouTube. Keep rocking with us, man. We appreciate the support.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Drop your player grades in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.